So previously, we talked a little bit about job and internship search strategies in general. Hopefully, that gave you a better big picture of how a job or internship search actually works. But we also want to get very specific as to how we actually will do a search. How will you generate job and internship leads? That's what we'll be discussing today. Our agenda will be to first talk about the value of attending a professional job fair. Job fairs can seem overwhelming to many students, and yet they're an excellent source of opportunities. We'll review a little bit about keywords and search terms and how to use those in a search. I'll show you how to use the advanced search option on a job board to maximize the leads that you generate. And finally, we'll wrap up with an overview of online application systems. These electronic systems are widely used today and can actually be quite confusing to navigate, so we want to equip you for that reality. So let's talk about job fairs. Why would you go to a job fair? What if there are no employers at the job fair that you're interested in, or at least no employers that you recognize, or the jobs that they seem to be recruiting for aren't of interest to you? Should you still go? Absolutely. Because a job fair is a low-risk way for you to connect with companies and recruiters. And while we will talk about job boards in this lesson, the reality is face-to-face networking is still one of the most reliable ways to find out about jobs and to get on the radar of hiring companies. So when you go to a fair, whether or not you're interested in the company or the job, you'll be connecting with recruiters and practicing your professional skills. You'll also get to test drive your resume and kind of get an overview of how the hiring process works in general. That's extremely valuable to you and is actually safer to do in a setting where you're not particularly interested in the employers or you don't know that these opportunities represent good options for you. And practicing your professional communication, just maneuvering in the professional environment, is a great way to prepare you for ultimate success in the job search. So I can't encourage you enough to go to a job fair. How do you find a job fair? Well, there's a few different ways. Of course, Career Services brings employers to campus periodically. We also are going to advertise job fairs that we know about on our social media, which at this point consists of several Facebook pages. However, you can look at the sites of national providers of mobile career fairs that move from town to town. Two of the biggest are United Career Fairs and National Career Fairs. So you can simply Google those sites, find what's going on in the Boston area. You can often see a list of what employers are likely to be there. You can sometimes submit a resume ahead of time, and this is going to be very beneficial to you in the job search. Also, many local workforce centers or state unemployment offices routinely offer job fairs. For example, the City of Cambridge Workforce Center has a social human services job fair about 4 times a year and a healthcare job fair about 3 times a year. So look at the State Workforce Center in the area where you live and see if they're posting information about job fairs, or are actually sponsoring or hosting any fairs. You can also look for specialty job fairs on Google. So from time to time, there might be something special like an education job fair for teachers and people who want to work in the public schools. Individual hospitals may host a hiring event. A large venue or a summer employer might hold a job fair. So you can always look for specialty job fairs on Google, and a career coach can always help you learn how to do this. Bottom line, a job fair is a great way to learn more about job opportunities and perhaps even find an actual job or internship. Now let's move on to a brief review of keywords and search terms. As I mentioned in another lesson, job titles alone are rarely robust enough to really generate the kind of leads that you're looking for. So we want to search using keywords and search terms that you build over time. As you search, read the job descriptions to further refine your keyword list. If you find a job you like, look in that job description to see if there are other words or phrases that are so unique that they're likely to only lead you to more of this type of job. You can also learn the names of companies that are likely to offer jobs you want, and then search at their actual websites. Searching using the names of industry-specific technology is often a great idea too. If you use Final Cut Pro as a search term, you're probably only going to find jobs that involve some amount of audio or video editing. If you use Razor's Edge or Meditech as search terms, you're likely to only find jobs that use that software. And finally, as I mentioned, keep a list of all your keywords and search terms and revise it continually based on what works. Titles can definitely be on that list, but they shouldn't be the only thing on that list. So once we have the keywords and the search terms, how are we going to use them specifically on a job board? Well, we're going to use something that most job boards provide called advanced search. It's an option that's almost always available, but very few job seekers actually use it. The advantage of the advanced search, once you know how to use it, is that it lets the job board do the work for you, finding only those positions that meet your criteria, or at least a higher percentage of positions that meet your criteria. Advanced searches allow you to combine keywords to look for positions that contain multiple of these search terms, and an advanced search will also allow you to exclude irrelevant terms. Like say you're looking in healthcare, but you don't want to work in skilled nursing. You can actually get that specific within a job search. And when you do the advanced search, the real trick is to find what's called the sweet spot, meaning that you've found terms that focus your search, but don't yield so few results that they're not helpful. At the end of the day, you'd still rather see more than less when it comes to a job search. Now we're going to take a minute and I'm going to demonstrate for you how a job search on Indeed might work using what I've just described. So here's the home page of Indeed.com. This is a really nice, large, general, broad job board. As you can see, you're allowed to specify the what and the where here being geography. But if you simply type a title in this search box, you'll probably get some interesting jobs, but way more than you actually want. So instead, we're going to go over here to Advanced Job Search, and I'm going to demonstrate how this can work. Two of my favorite boxes are these top two. The one that says Find Jobs with all of these words, and Find Jobs with the exact phrase. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for a position that involves event planning. So I'm going to type event planning here. I'm not going to change my geography at this point for purposes of demonstration. What this is going to find for me is any job listed on Indeed that includes both the word event and planning. What you see here, this first option, Workforce Planning Analyst, is a perfect example of a job that isn't an event planning job. It's a job that contains both the words event and planning, and you can just imagine how that would happen here. However, if I go back to the advanced job search and I take out event planning from all of these words, and I put it instead into the exact phrase box, now all that will display for me are jobs that include the phrase event planning. And so what this helps me to do is to see common titles, hiring organizations, and a lot of information that I can read more deeply to further refine my keyword list. I can also exclude words using none of these words. I can find by specific company. I can find internships, full-time or part-time jobs this way. So you always want to be using the advanced job search on whatever job board you're searching on. Once you've found those jobs, one of your biggest questions might be, should I apply? What if I don't meet the criteria? What if I'm not sure that I would take the job? I believe you should apply if you are honestly interested and realistically believe you can do the job. If you possess about 75% of the necessary qualifications, you should go for it. And if you are not sure if you would take the job, you should go for it because this means you actually need more information in order to decide. People will often say, well, what about experience level? I don't have the experience. How do you get a job if you don't have experience? And how do you get experience if you don't have a job? Well, the reality is employers hire people who can do the job regardless of the level of experience. They only state experience range as a means of helping the candidate decide if they're likely to be qualified. But the bottom line is, experience doesn't have to be paid to count. Course projects and volunteer things you've done count as experience. And entry level is 2 to 5 years of experience. The bottom line is, let the employer decide if you're qualified. Don't opt out. Now, we've mentioned before that you should be prioritizing your applications. You can't tackle everything with A-level effort. And a good job search contains A, B, and C priorities with appropriate effort and follow-up matched to the viability of that job. Now let's wrap up by talking about applicant tracking systems because you're very likely to encounter these in your job search. Applicant tracking is just an online software that employers use to gather data about candidates. It allows them to manage a lot of information using technology. It allows them to weed out people who aren't serious about the application, and it identifies candidates to take a second look at. Employers use complex criteria and they sort hundreds of resumes in priority order, and every application is scored based on how well the applicant meets the criteria that have been entered. The list of candidates is then displayed in priority order, and the recruiter only actually looks at the resumes of those who ranked high in the scoring process. So to be selected, you want to be thorough, complete, and accurate in your information. You want to use college-level writing and fill that application with keywords. And if you're asked for a salary, you want to be reasonable. A career coach can show you how to use salary.com to determine what that is. You'll be rejected for incomplete applications, spelling and grammar errors, and not enough keywords or unrealistic salary. The bottom line, and we'll talk more about ATS later, many applicant tracking systems are tied to social media, so clean it up. Be sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Put a professional voicemail greeting on your phone. It takes a long time to do a quality application and follow-up. So if you're serious about the job, do a good job in the process and let Career Services work with you to customize, tailor, and ensure success in your job or internship search.